Upside Down in the Middle of Nowhere, chapter 11 and 12 in this section. So two chapters in one because they're kind of short. The whole house shook with one quick loud thwack, and I ran out to the living room with Celie on my heels, and it was dark, and I didn't see Kyla sitting there in the hall playing with the cars and Cricket's shoebox. I ran right into her, almost dropping the puppy, and Celie plowed into the back of me and screamed, and Kayla fell flat to the floor, squashing the little box, and she started wailing. I grabbed a hold of Kyla by one arm and pulled her off the floor. "It's okay, Kayla, it's okay," I kept saying in huffs of breath, trying to calm her down, and it wasn't working, though, because I was as close as I'd ever been to a full-blown panic myself. Everyone was shouting and running around. The room was spooky with candles flickering and shadows running across the ceiling. "Catherine," Daddy shouted, "get the children and take them to our room. Stay away from the windows." "Come on, y'all, I heard your Daddy." Mama was scooping up the babies and still managed to grab hold of Celie's hand. A bright white light streaked through the checkered curtains and poured into the room. In a split second, I see Mima's face, her mouth wide open and her eyes all bugged out, and the air got sucked out of me. An explosion of thunder rattled the whole house, and I screamed and covered my ears. Another bolt of lightning lit up a shadowy room. There it was again, that look on Mima's face. A cry that started in my belly flew out of my mouth, bending in with screams of the wind. Cold, prickly shivers ran up my back and down my arms, and a sour taste burned in the back of my throat. Daddy had his arm around Mima, and I led her off to the bedroom to be with Mama and the kids, and I didn't want to see her looking that way, all full of fright. My breathing was coming fast and hard, and my heart raced almost as fast as my brain. Another clap of thunder, and the creaky broken screen door made out one last loud slap up against the house before I heard it rip right off, flying who knows where. The house moved beneath my feet. "Daddy!" "I'm here, baby." The lightning flashed, and there he was. My daddy was right there, just on the other side of Mima's TV watching chair. The wind shook the windows like airplane was fixing to land on our roof, and even with Mima and all the kids up in the bedroom, I could still hear them crying and screaming and begging Mama to make it stop. Uncle T-Bone was huddled on the couch with his arms wrapped around Miss, and she was wailing louder than the kids in the bedroom, waving only a flashlight in the room with every which way. More lightning and more thunder, and the constant sound of rain dumping down in buckets so hard it sounded like we might as well have been standing up under a waterfall. I didn't even realize I was holding on to Georgie till he screamed in my ear, and it was a high-pitched scream that sent a terror running through me. He covered his head with his hands, and I dug my fingers deep into his arms and screamed with him. It wasn't no normal thunderstorm. The sky had fell out, and the world was ending. Daddy stood by the front window and looked out. He shook his head back and forth. He took off his glasses. His right hand came up and held the top of his head, then slid down, and he rubbed his eyes. Daddy looked straight up at the ceiling and squeezed his eyes shut. In a whisper cry, he said, "Protect us, sweet Jesus." A tree branch crashed through the big window and knocked Daddy to the floor. This is chapter 12. "Daddy," me and Georgie both screamed. We ran to him. Daddy looked up at us, and he had a thin line of mud trickling down his forehead, and his glasses were missing from his face. Miss Shug shined the flashlight in Daddy's direction. She seen the blood streaming down the side of his face and went hollering. The whole while, she kept right on fanning herself with a tangerine hat, blinking her eyes a mile a minute. Uncle T-Bone looked at Georgie. "Go calm Lorraine down." Me and Georgie looked at each other like maybe Uncle T-Bone was the only one who got knocked in the head. "Who's Lorraine?" "Shug! Go calm Miss Shug down." The woman was wailing louder than ever now. Shug, sorry. The woman's name is Shug, not Shug. Shug like sugar. My brother looked over to the woman, so sweet they called her Sugar. "No, sir," Georgie said, pushing his glasses firm up on his nose. "Daddy needs me." Georgie walked across the broken glass that was covered with stuck globs of sticky gray tape, and he scooted past my uncle and put his arm around Daddy's waist. He helped Daddy get over to the sofa. A long-lasting flash of lightning lit up the room. In the white light that shined on my brother, I caught a glimpse of the way I think Georgie will look when he's a grown man. He'd look just like Daddy. The rain had let up, and the lightning and thunder rolled on. It didn't take long to figure out what had caused that first loud cracking sound. The big oak tree in front from next door had come up out of the ground, roots and all, and slammed into the top of Daddy's truck. Ruined. The truck was forever ruined. I couldn't remember us not having that truck. It was practically the only thing that I'd ever ridden in except for my school bus. Daddy kept shaking his head back and forth, and a couple of times he said, "Thank God no one was killed." "Daddy," Georgie said, "what are we going to do?" "Well, son," he said, lifting his head and sitting a little taller, The first thing we're going to do is make sure your mama knows that everything is going to be all right. But Daddy, Georgie looked at the broken glass that was still catching the light from the far-off lightning. Daddy stood up. I was happy to see him standing, and I felt safer with him standing. He put one hand on Georgie's shoulder and his other hand on my shoulder. He looked at the two of us with soft eyes. I need the two of you to help me clean up this mess so it doesn't upset your mama. Yes, sir, we both said. Good, because it's going to be a long night. I don't want Mama to worry worry more than she has to. I don't remember Daddy ever talking like this to us before, and we were grown. This must be what it's like when you make 10, all grown up, and to think, the day before, I was just a child. Mama and her flashlight came around the corner and into the living room. She was toting Colleen on one hip and Kayla on the other. Mama stopped looking at the broken window and the mess all over the room. Kayla slid down her leg and went running to Daddy. Mama's hand covered her mouth, fear filled her eyes. You're hurt. She went to Daddy and took his face into her hands. I'm fine, Catherine. Are the children all right? And he smoothed her hair with his thumb. Mima came into the room. Well, we might as well hunker down and get ready, she said to no one in particular. Suddenly, the huge gust of wind came blowing in through the broken window, and just like that, the minute of calm was over. We all let out a gasp and covered our faces. T-Bone, Daddy hollered over the roar of the wind. Help me find something to cover this window. Misty bits of rain moistened my skin. Mr. Curtis, Mama yelled. The panic in her voice caused the hairs on the back of my neck to prickle. My black velvet Jesus. There, sitting all cockeyed on the wall next to the broke-out window, was Mama's pride and joy, a huge black velvet painting of brown Jesus himself. No matter where you walked in the room, his eyes on the black velvet followed you, even in the dark. Nothing but a candle and a flashlight lit in the room, his shiny gold halo glowed, and his eyes followed. The picture was about to fall, and Mama was about to lose her mind. For the first time in my whole life, I felt unsafe in a place where I'd always known, no matter what, I was going to be safe. Daddy grabbed a hold of the picture and took it down from the wall, real careful-like, and he sat it up on top of the gym floor table next to the leftover jambalaya and his birthday cake. About 50 bottles of water were standing in a row, like soldiers keeping watch. Seeing black velvet Jesus lying there with Mama's food all around him gave me an unsettling feeling. For years, Jesus has been hanging high on the wall, all watching over us, and now he was lying flat on the table with us looking down at him. I fought the feeling and wanted to pick him up and stand him upright. I wonder how Jesus was feeling this time, being surrounded by leftovers stuffed into plastic baggies, half-eaten blue birthday cake practically sitting on top of his head. After a while, the constant whipping and swirling of wind, pounding and rain caused a quiet calm to fall over the inside of our house. My eyes got heavier and heavier till I couldn't keep them open anymore. Howling winds interrupted that peaceful feeling. The nighttime hum turned to shrieking crashes and rattles just past midnight. The house was swaying. Part of the roof was flapping and slapping in the gusty, roaring wind, and I thought for sure the roof was going to let go. We all sat squished together on the sofa, listening to the wind wail, watching the flicker of a candle make crazy, scary shadows dance across the walls and ceiling. The house shuddered and moaned with noises that made us all shut up, like we were waiting to see if something was fixing to fall and bury us alive. I sat there knowing that something was coming. Maybe next time a tree was going to fall and crush us instead of a truck. I couldn't help but wonder, if the roof got pulled off, would we get sucked out? Mima was humming church hymns. The sound made my eyes droopy. It was a nice sound, a familiar sound. Mima had the best hum this side of the Mississippi River. With my eyes closed and Cricket breathing heavy on top of my belly, I started to fall asleep with Celie pressed up against me. The rain fell from the sky like marbles, and the wind whooshed through the house like the walls were made of cheesecloth instead of drywall. Minutes felt like hours felt like days, and crashing sounds, popping noises, something getting crushed. Each time I'd hold my breath, close my eyes, and wait for it to pass. I hugged my knees and rocked myself, trying to ignore the rush of the wind slapping everything I knew to bits. Our house never felt smaller. The darkness slowly changed from black to gray, and as the room grew lighter, the more settled and quiet we all got. The only sleep I grabbed was right before the sun came up. I knew just once the sun started shining, we'd be out of the dark and everything would be all right, but that feeling of peace came to a quick end.